I don't know what he's going to read today, but I don't know how he knew some of the things that showed up in his poems. But poets are good at seeing into the future sometimes. So here's Hunter.
Hi. Just want to make sure my voice is working. If it is not, Susan, thank you. So I am zooming to you right now from actually North Berwick, Maine. And I'm going to read a poem that I wrote last year for the conference. And it's going to be in the book, the river review. And the title is When Their Underground Paradise is Extinguished by Heaven. After it rains big, the poison is black in its clear plastic boxes, black with ants. Here will be a theme. It can't consume them. Fear this many-hearted creature. Hula hoops on the wet street, pink with rainbow tassels. Kids splash through and raise them in the booming air like wings. What next? The hill slides out, ocean the color of beer. A man on his stomach, legs buried in a dune, tries to drink it, fails. Brown bottles buried too all around him, upright halfway. Bent pillars for the temple, empty. His red truck parked up there. The modern observer, it says. And from its wheel wells. Shake your head now. Imagine this. They really stink when crushed too, like chemical warfare. I'm saying don't smell your hand, not in this unwell spring. Spring is every hand reaching. Spring is every tongue opening. Worms lick the booming air. Some birds pull them then. Some hands. Some watch them break. Some are laughing. The home is near now. We can feel it. Dog vibrating for a treat in the hand. The porch falls off. Ants are the hand of spring. The porch is crushed by streaming green water. The dog burrows underneath, under the house, escapes to the other side. Freedom, covered in dirt while the master screams, please come back. But no dog, just the thin trunk of a gray shaking tree and something behind it, something looking from behind it. The master is afraid, as he should be. His long body is slated for removal. The insect word is coming from memory, from broken hole, from nonsense chasm, into coffee maker, bodies fouling the filter, then into shower head, then pouring out, the water dark with ants. This really happens, the end phases, a kind of revenge, in fact, in the home itself, washed over the lips, the huge unknowable lips, tumbling over the yelling voice. Some climb in, down throat, into heart. Evidence shows us, until the crumbling house is full. For what, we ask, but we are aware. For their babies, for the tubing, for Rainbow Bridge and Dreaming Snake, for what is tubing but thought itself, for the wedding rehearsal, and no apples this time, this stomach ache spring, of crushing water, crushing air, of big sounds high up. The destroyer twin is in star-reeking flower. Angraminu, unsublime hypostasis, phantom of leveling, bends us open, little feet dance over the barrier. 9,000 years of vainglorious presumption, deleted by a bug. See here, see the shining, swarming hand. They are remaking you. Our advice for times like these is this: don't kill too slowly. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Hunter. And one of the things that I didn't realize at the time when I was putting this reading list together is that the second half, it's almost as if like the present moment is creeping in a little bit. So again, even though maybe we don't want to welcome that vision, we get to learn and expand our own vision by experiencing yours. Thank you, Hunter. So Adrian Tharp, is our next reader. Adrienne Tharp grew up in rural Alabama and now lives in urban New Mexico. And one of the upsides to this pandemic is that Adrienne is able to join us today. So here she is to read.
I'm Adrienne Tharp, and I'm reading from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there are a bunch of mourning doves in the elm trees in the alley behind where I live, and they just keep cooing. And if you don't know what a mourning dove sounds like, they're the ones that go, hoo, 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 hoo. And so I find them really wonderful, but they're also a little ominous. I'm reading a flash nonfiction piece called Decomposure. I till rose into the red Alabama clay, and Mom sprinkles seeds there, a garden of infertile ground. We know nothing can grow here, yet we try anyway, overjoyed when seeds sprout vines from the broken earth, when vines spring blooms, when blooms weigh down with rhymes. We pick the watermelons before they ripen. They are the size of stress balls, larger than my first grade fists, with white, embryo-shaped seeds. I am 13 when Mom's eyebrows first fall out, 14 when her spine curves her into a hunchback, 15 when she spends the 3 months of summer staring at bare walls in the psychiatric ward. I am 16 when her menstrual cycle ends in her early 40s, 17 when she begins to starve herself, 18 when the doctors diagnose her with schizophrenia. I move away from home. I do not visit, fearful of my roots, the way they reach. Blackbirds descend on the garden and drill holes into the melons with their beaks. I watch from the windows and chase the wings away, but I am not fast enough to save the fruit. Ants, worms, and flies congregate for watermelon funerals. I should do something with the shriveled skins. I know, yet I leave them to deflate, fold in on themselves with the sweet stench of rot, the rural decay we were told they'd be, unintelligible from dirt. Mom plants more seeds. While I am gone, the melons wither in the summer sun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Part of the pleasure of having Adrienne is the voice of Adrienne Tharp too. And that makes it especially moving to me when we hear the rhythms of a speaker's voice so clearly. Thank you. Well, Chris Ernest Hall is our next reader. His near future adult novel, it's a young adult novel. This Time the Fire has been a 3-time prize winner at the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference. This is another one of those reminders really that a work, it takes a lot of time and work to create a book, and to be able to use a conference like MCWC as a support system through the various stages a book takes. So he's been letting us, his instructors help him. Chris was also awarded the 2017 Ginny Rorby Scholarship for MGYA, and here he is reading today.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Ernest Hall. I'm coming to you live from Berkeley, North Berkeley, California. The sun is out, and I just saw my mom's 18-year-old cat, Morgana, walk by on her latest rodent killing expedition. So I'm reading from the opening chapter of This Time the Fire, and which begins with 15-year-old Maddie waiting for 17-year-old Walt to run by her house during a heat wave. The distant clap of feet breaks the stillness of the morning. I stand and put my phone away. If it's Walt, I don't want him to see me sitting here. It would look like I'm waiting for him, like I'm a loser with nothing better to do. I rearrange the pots in case the rains come again and my mom wants to replant. I slide each pot a few inches to the right, and the footfalls get louder as they echo against the walls of the houses. I can't help peeking. Walt is coming around the bend into the bulb of our cul-de-sac. His figure wavers in the heat come rising off the pavement, like he's running underwater. He looks good in his black shorts, white shoes, and no shirt, light brown skin gleaming. He has perfect abs, even and well-defined, like the undershell of a turtle. Something's wrong, though. Usually Walt's stride is so regular, it's mesmerizing. Today, it's different. His legs are buckling, like his body is heavier than it really is. He raises his hand, but staggers. He stops, leans over with his hands on his knees, unsteady and rocking, as he breathes in and out raggedly. I rush across the dead lawn to grab him before he falls. He almost knocks me over, but I brace myself. I help Walt to the ground and kneel next to him. No, please, he says, as if he's bumped into me at the grocery store. I'm fine. He's dazed and his skin now has a grayish pallor. I'm not entirely sure what happened. I love Walt's accent. It sounds British, like a character on the shows my mom loves and my dad couldn't stand, but Jack watches with her. Other times, there's a lilting quality. Walt tries to get up, but his leg buckles. Stay down, I say in my most commanding voice, placing my hand on the hard muscle of his bare shoulder. I'm touching a boysome part of him, he says, and he's hardly wearing any clothes. A scary kind of warmth fills me, as if a miniature sun has gone nova in my belly. Walt looks at me sheepishly. I'm fine, really, he says, but he stops trying to stand. Instead, he arranges himself in a sitting position, his long legs folded so his knees are level with his nose. You're not. In spite of the seriousness of the situation, I almost want to laugh at the absurdity of his insistence. I glance up at the window of my house, wondering if my mom has noticed the commotion. Should I go inside and get her? Call 911? No, not yet. It's pretty obvious what he needs. Let's get out of the sun. Walt nods weakly. I help him up and support his waist while I walk a short distance to the corner of the house. I sit him down on the planter in the shade. I'll get you some water. I go to the hose and twist the tap a half turn, hoping my mom doesn't hear and come out to see what's going on. Bad enough that I'm using the hose, but I'm also talking to a boy she's never met. I pass the hose to Walt. As he slurps from it, I can smell his perspiration. It's a strong, tangy smell, but not a bad one. Walt stops after a few moments. He knows not to drink too much too quickly. He takes the water bottle out of the holster hooked to his black shorts and tries to fill it, but his hand shakes. I take the water bottle, fill it all the way up, scurry back to the tap, and shut it off. I shouldn't be using so much water, so I promise myself I won't wash my face before going to bed. Thank you.
Yes, there's kind of like that whole issue of climate change that we haven't been talking about so much. It hasn't gone away. And so thank you, Chris, even for that, even if we don't want to be reminded, we need to be. So Alicia London is our next reader. Alicia's debut middle grade novel is set in rural Bolivia, where she spent 3 years living and working as a Peace Corps volunteer. Alicia's goal is to share the sweet and bitter world of her 11-year-old protagonist with middle grade readers, as well as with her own daughters. Here is Alicia London.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Alicia, and I am Zooming from San Francisco. And I got sunburned earlier today, and now the fog is moving in, sort of typical June. I'm reading from the first chapter of my middle grade novel called Land of Bitter and Sweet. The quiet house wakes me. No snorting, bleeding, or constant shifting of bodies. Black nose, flat ear, and Uma, llamas that my brother Victor and I raised from soft, fleecy babies, are gone. I didn't want to sell them, but Mama says we cannot take them with us. Every morning, their dark eyes watch me dress and search the room for Victor. But even without him, they are willing to follow me out of the house at dawn and up the hill to graze. I press my face into the wool blanket to keep my tears inside. With no animals left, it feels like we really are leaving forever. Next to me, Tata, my father, snuffles out a loud snore. His breath and sweat smell like sour corn from the chicha he drank last night at our goodbye party. Slowly, I slide out of the bed to keep from waking him and my little brother, Luis. I pull on a sweater made from flat ears, soft brown wool, and step into my wide red pollera skirt, usually saved for special occasions. I look like I am ready for a celebration instead of saying goodbye. Mama moves quietly around the room, packing our last belongings. My baby sister, Bebita, is asleep on her back, wrapped in a woolen aguayo. Mama wears her best polleras layered on top of her everyday skirt, and her black hair is freshly twisted into 2 thick braids. She also looks ready for a party, but her round face has lost its softness. Her eyes are hard and her mouth turned down. Her face scares me. I remember last night how I carried Luis limp and heavy into my house from the goodbye party next door and found Aunt Naira and Mama hunched together on our bed in the dark. I couldn't see Mama's face, but I heard her say, "We have to go. If he goes to the lowlands without us this time, I'm not sure he will come back again." My body froze in the doorway. I can't lose Victor and my Tata too. Mama's voice sounded clogged in her throat, but she rarely cries. He wants land that belongs to him, not just the use of my family's fields. I step outside. The morning air is sharp and dry in my nose. The last pink of the sunrise hangs high above the rocky hills. Everything, except the sky, is a shade of brown. The newly turned soil, the rocks that line the steep fields, and our 3 adobe houses. Even my uncle's sheep and llamas waiting to be led up the hill to graze are covered in enough dust to make any white in their coats a light brown. This is home. This is where my mother's family has always lived. High in the rocks are our sacred altars where we feed our ancestors and the yuri, the protective spirits. In return, they take care of us. Worry washes through me that Victor will miss me. He will be lonely without my visits and without me to walk our hills. He will think I have forgotten him and left him behind to grow up without him. I have to tell him why we have to go. Mama is waiting for me to bring in the water, but I leave the bucket empty by the door and run along the trail to the top of our narrow valley to the graveyard. Winter winds have carried away the offerings, sweeping most of the brown adobe graves bare. 2 of the small mounds are my little sisters, Naira and the tiny unnamed baby girl. Next to them, marked with a metal cross, is Victor's grave. He alone has sun-bleached plastic flowers left from Todos Santos, All Saints' Day, because on every visit, I pin them down with rocks. Victor, don't be angry, I tell him. I have to go to the lowlands with Tata. If we don't, he might not come back to us again. I let my tears spill on the ground so Victor can feel them. You won't be alone. Aunt Naira will take care of you. The wind circling the graves makes a low hum through Victor's cross. It sounds like the call our llama, Yuma, used to make to Victor. Every morning, Victor and I would duck under the blankets, count to 3, and pop our faces out. We laughed as the llamas started and blinked their surprise. Uma would make her humming noise, and Victor always answered back. He was with me every minute of his 8 years, and I can still feel him near me. Come find me in the lowlands, I whisper. But even as I say it, I know it isn't possible. Our dead are tied to the land where they died. So thank you so much for coming and listening to us all and staying for all the way through. And thanks.
Thank you, Alicia. Well, Suzanne Van De Velde is our next reader. She was an Army brat. She grew up in Connecticut, Asia, Oklahoma, Europe, and Washington, D.C. Her film and television productions have won multiple awards. Her fiction has appeared in Narrative and Psychoanalytic Perspectives. She is an assistant editor at Narrative, and she's going to read to us today. Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Suzanne Van De Velde. I'm speaking to you from Santa Monica, where it's quite nice. I'd like to thank Susan Bono for all her efforts. Her gentle, diplomatic, yet unrelenting, laser-like attention to my piece. It much benefited from her assistance, so thank you, Susan. This is a piece of flash fiction. Sunflowers, 1936. It was on the middle road where we all learned to drive during our summers at the lake. At 15, I was too young for a license. Next to the road was a field of sunflowers, radiant and indifferent to the echoes of metal on metal, indifferent to the burst belly of our Packard and their ruptured pickup tilted in the ditch. Right after the collision, my mother said, "Hugo, quick, change places, now, before they see that you were driving." I scrambled over her thick body. She wriggled under me into the driver's seat and put her hair back up with shaky fingers. Her seat was warm and concave in the August heat. On the armrest, her lavender powder spun the light into fairy tale dew. All of this made me want to puke. Remember, I was driving. Are you listening? I was driving. No matter what they say, just stick to that. Hello? Yes? Kindly answer me. Got it. But she was already out of the car. Is everyone all right? She called out. A girl about 13 clung to the door of the Model A as it squealed open. Her sandal caught on the running board as she stumbled out. She sat down in the middle of the road as though it were a picnic blanket and Pi was coming any minute. My mother stood over her. Who's driving? Who's driving your truck? The girl didn't answer. She swept her blonde hair up from her neck and began to comb it with her fingers. When she saw the blood on her hand, her dress, she started to rock, her palms flat against the road. We left her there. The driver's door was hanging from a single hinge. Only the ditch kept it from falling off. My mother looked past the truck at the girl on the road. He was in his 30s, slender and strong. He'd just shaved and a square of tissue clung to his chin. He'd clear the brush from your land in an afternoon, stand on the porch, drink a glass of water, take his money and be on his way. If he saw you in the village, he'd nod as you and the other summer kids crowded into the diner. He was wearing a suit. I remembered it was Sunday. Please, he whispered. I held him in the ditch. I could see the sunflowers, the girl still stapled to the road, the splintered glass. My hand slid under his jacket and blood, warm and thick, filled my cupped palms. The angular smell of starch rose from his shirt. My mother steered the girl over. The blood in her hair had dried into spikes. She knelt in the ditch and tapped his shoulder. Come on, Daddy. She kept saying, come on, Daddy, come on. And it sounded like something we should get up and dance to. The dance at the end of the night, when you barely move and are already remembering. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's a revealing that I felt that was a high compliment to be called gently but unrelenting. Right? It's every editor's dream to just push, So I appreciated actually all the authors who allowed not only me, but there were 2 editors for every piece. And I felt that that would give the writer the benefit of 2 perspectives. It would also help with whatever blind spots that I would have. And so there was the push and the pull in the creating the final versions of all these pieces. And it was also very useful when sometimes the authors, the writers pushed back and said, no. So just keep that in mind. It isn't all about it is not all about surrender to the forces of that unrelenting editor. It's also about learning when it's your piece and it's something that you have to say. So I thank all of you. And thanks, Suzanne, for that. Now, Terry Connolly is our next reader. Terry writes in a variety of genres: poetry, personal essay, nonfiction, short fiction, and novel. As a high school English teacher, she draws on the power of the reading-writing connection to develop her students' creative talents. This story that she'll be reading from won the first prize in short fiction. Here is Terry. Did you get it?
I'm a retired teacher. Yay! I live in Hayward, California. And for those of you that don't know where it is, it's sort of between Oakland and San Jose. And it's an absolutely gorgeous day. You probably will hear children playing outside. I love watching them and hearing their voices. And in the background, my lovebird is also having a wonderful day. And there's no way to shut her up, so oh well. Anyway, my story is called The Visitor. At the end of the school day, when Stan Ellis signaled the turn onto the gravel drive of his grandpa's ranch, he was startled by an unfamiliar man dressed in black, leaning against the rusted mailbox. "Can I help you?" Stan asked. The man touched his right hand to the brim of his dusty Stetson, smirked, turned, and sauntered toward town. His knee-length leather coat was excessive for a Montana spring afternoon, since he was on foot passing through expansive farmlands. As soon as the man was out of sight, Stan retrieved the mail, put the truck in gear, and headed home. A trio of identical chestnut-spotted horses, their heads up and tails streaming, followed along as he drove past the corral. Grandpa recently bought the skinny things at auction, seeing in them the potential to be excellent trail horses for a nearby dude ranch. Stan and his grandpa spent hours with them, brushing out mats from tails and manes and removing dirt clumps from hooves. Stan placed the mail on a small wooden table, scooped 6 sugar cubes out of a plastic container, and headed to the corral. He whistled to the approaching horses that nickered in anticipation. But even before a single cube was eaten, the horses whirled about, galloping into the far corner of the corral. Stan spotted the black-clad man sitting on the edge of the water trough, the stench of whiskey drifting overhead. Terrified by the man's silent arrival, Stan ran across the yard into the house and grabbed a shotgun. He carried it outside, and with it firmly in his arms, he stood with squared shoulders, head held high. Stan had never shot a person and didn't want to now, but he aimed the muzzle at the man's chest, hoping to scare him away. Without speaking, the man saluted, strolled toward the gate, and ambled away. Stan watched until the man was out of sight. Only then was he comfortable enough to lead the 3 horses into the barn. He left the gun leaning against an inner wall, just in case it would be needed. He refreshed the food and water, and after passing the rumps of each of the 3 horses, Stan opened the back doors and whistled. Grandpa's stallion Joe led the rest of the herd in a rising cloud of dust. Betty, a roan mare that was a gift from Grandpa when Stan turned 15, came second, followed by 3 Appaloosa mares and a 2-year-old colt. When they were stabled, Stan tossed bales of hay down from the loft. He brushed each as they ate, keeping an ear open for sounds that might signal the return of the man. The last task of the day was to oil the harnesses, a necessary ritual whether the tack was used or not. Stan liked the smell of the oil, the rhythmic rubbing that softened the leather, and that gave him a sense of accomplishment when done. But despite seeing nothing amiss, he held the shotgun tightly as he locked the barn and returned to the house. He poured himself a glass of milk and opened his economics book. Perfect grades would increase opportunities for college scholarships, a dream Stan had held for years. Even though Grandpa Reed assured him that the tuition would be covered, Stan wanted to help. But this evening, concentration eluded him, as every sound reminded him of unwelcome footsteps. Grandpa would soon arrive with supplies that Stan would be expected to unload. His homework finally done, Stan stepped outside on the porch to discover the man standing near the bottom step. "What do you want?" he demanded, trying to quell tremors that snaked over his body. The man pushed back his hat, revealing an ugly red worm of a scar running from ear to chin that pulled his mouth into a grimace. "This is private property," Stan said. He squared his shoulders, trying to look formidable. "Leave now or I'll call the sheriff." Stan reached for the phone sitting on a little table and, holding the receiver aloft, punched the buttons. The man gave his familiar smirk and salute. But before he exited through the gate, he barked, "Them horses are mine. I want them back." Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you, Terry. And you know, actually, as I'm listening to this, it's like, lest you are feeling like we're just going to get darker and darker and darker, I promise we're not going to leave on this just, you know, and it works out okay in Terry's story. I'll just, no spoilers, but it's just, it's like, it's going to be okay for Terry, for her character, for Stan. So Isabel Auerbach is our next reader, and she lives in Sonoma County. In fact, we're not that far apart. She's in Rohnert Park, and I keep forgetting that, and I don't know, we'll run into you someday at Oliver's or something. She writes fiction that concentrates on women and that often explore improbable situations in everyday life. Currently, she's working on a short story collection and the second draft of a novel. And this is, again, another flash fiction piece. So I hope we're going to end with a couple of short ones that are complete unto themselves. So here's Isabel.
Greetings. I'm Isabel Auerbach, and I am from Rohnert Park, the very middle of Sonoma County. And there are morning glories outside the window where I work here. And they're all over the place. Because of the epidemic, I couldn't get morning glory seeds this year. So these are all flowers that have reseeded themselves from previous years, and they inspire me with their thrust for life. Bills, bills, bills. Margaret sat on her one chair to lace up her sneakers, averting her eyes from the monthly bills on the kitchen living room table. Over the weekend, between breakfast and lunch shifts at the Lucky Penny, she had researched 18th century orphanages. Today, she would take the quarters and dimes from her weekend tips and pay her utility bill, due last Friday, at the office near campus. And tonight, she would stay up as long as necessary to write her history paper due tomorrow. The relentless metronome of classes, diner shifts, and studying filled her days. Her morning run was the only time as she fit her body into her schedule. She pulled on her backpack as she trotted down the stairs. On Mondays, she sometimes found clothing or books in the free leftover boxes from weekend garage sales that she could sell. Her scrounging brought only a pittance, but every pittance helped. Outside, the sky met her with a leaden gray that would soon brighten to silver and pink to welcome the day. Few people were on the street, and the park was empty. Just past the main entrance, she saw some litter off the trail, partway behind a log, and veered to retrieve it. With no time for regular volunteering, Margaret sometimes picked up trash. The white fast food bag seemed heavy. Margaret poked it open and saw banded stacks of money. Her breath started coming in heaves. She didn't move, feeling 1,000 eyes on her. Then she snatched the bag, stuffed it into her backpack, and fled as fast as she could on the uneven ground, away from the entrance, picking her way through the trees, aiming for the narrower trail that branched toward a side exit. She measured a circuitous loop home, turning corners and backtracking in an amateur attempt to determine if she was being followed. Back home, Margaret dumped the money on the table next to her bills. There were 9 bundles. She picked up one and flipped through it. All 20s. She counted carefully till she reached 100. 100 times $20 was $2,000. The other stacks were also all 20s. She had $18,000. But now she had to hurry. She layered the bundles back into the white bag and stashed the money on the top shelf of her closet, covered by her extra blanket. With possibilities running wild in her head, Margaret showered and dressed with record speed. She reached for her now empty backpack to load what she needed for her day and stopped. While she didn't think she had been seen, she would not feel safe using it or wearing her morning's running clothes again. On the bright side, she could afford a multi-pocket tote and a new outfit. Life was better already. The drug boss had been against the old-fashioned cash drop in the woods, but the rules about territory and negotiation meant giving the nephew of the downtown boss a chance to do things his way. The nephew was too smug to believe that anything could go wrong, and too naive to imagine the boss would be watching him make every mistake possible. When the jogger appeared in the boss's binoculars and stooped down, he wanted to thank her. It was her lucky day, but his too. For small business loss, he was now free of his obligation, and his proposed expansion was now a sure thing. The boss looked up at the rosy sky. Life was good. Thank you.
Things have a way of working out, don't they? At least in Isabel's world, at least on that day. Yes, thank you. So we are now, we're coming to our last reading, and Agatha Hinman is our final reader, and well, it's a piece that I'm hoping will kind of leave us with a sense of liftoff. And after we're finished, I guess we have a few minutes. I have no idea what we might do afterwards, but except to say goodbye. But here I am going to introduce Agatha Hinman. She grew up in rural Mendocino County and now lives in Oakland, California. A piece of her flash fiction has appeared in Cleaver, an online literary magazine, and a short story has appeared in a previous edition of the Noyo River Review. So we've had the pleasure of working with Aggie before. She writes mainly short fiction. Please lend your ears to Agatha Hinman.
Hi, everyone. I take it you can hear me and see me. Okay. I'm zooming in from East Oakland, and I'm looking out my window. I see the Coliseum mainly, and I get to hear the Amtrak train when it goes by, which I always like. I'm going to read a piece of short fiction called Postcard of a Chinese Acrobat. These days, I like to sit out on the front porch of Providence Care Home and enjoy the sun on my arthritic bones. This morning, someone left a postcard on the card table next to my chair. Some kind of Chinese acrobat in a red shirt is flying through the air, back arched, arms wide like the wings of a red-tailed hawk. He's soaring high, as pure as bliss. I could never do that, but I can live out loud, and that's what I came into the world to do. With the only life I was going to have, what's the point of living under the covers? And in the Central Valley when I was a kid, I hated it. I went to San Francisco and worked as a longshoreman. Longshoremen don't take any crap from anyone. We got a lot of strikes under our belt. Then some of us went to Spain to fight the fascists. I took a bullet in the arm at Teruel and came home. But some comrades joined the US Army and fought again. These here, well, I don't know anything about it. She said,
Oh, Aggie?
have to get in trouble.
Aggie, Aggie, you
yes. Oh, you're not hearing?
No, your voice. You know what I suggest is that you maybe it would help if you turned off your video, and so that we could just hear you. I think that that's all. Maybe that's the wrong thing to suggest. Amy, do you agree? Would that help? And so start with after I took a bullet in the arm at Terrell, and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Then some of us went to Spain to fight the fascists. I took a bullet in the arm at Teruel and came home, but some comrades joined the US Army and fought again. These folks here, why, they don't know anything about it. My sister knew. She got pushed around plenty, but she said, how come you always have to get in trouble, making a spectacle of yourself, if you ask me, irresponsible hoodlums, getting arrested, thinking you're going to change the world. She had a hard life, and she said knocking heads with the cops wasn't going to help. And I wish I could have answered her. I was just driven. I got so mad seeing people pushed around, I had to make a racket. I wish I could have told her I was just living my life out loud, not muffled up like her. I have to say, her daughter was with her to the end, taking her shopping and to the doctors, nursing her when she was sick. Not that my daughter is hard-hearted. She sends a postcard from Mexico every now and then, but the truth is, I was never around her much. That fellow in the picture, leaping through the air, his body in flight like some prehistoric birds. I wonder if he's got a daughter somewhere. And was he working on that move night and day, so for one moment, like the hawk, he could fly? And it didn't matter about the daughter. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for coming. Let's see if this still is not working. Is this better? Okay. So I'm sorry for all that happened. Before I leave, I would like to encourage everyone to consider ordering a copy of the Noyo River Review. As someone who was born and raised in Mendocino County, I think it's safe to say there aren't very many literary journals available in it. And it's a wonderful, one-of-a-kind contribution, that and the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference that produces it, to generally the creative life of Northern California. So I think it must be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and you know, Aggie's technical difficulties, just think that we could have been in a coffee shop and the espresso machine could have gone blasting, or, you know, motorcycles could have driven by. So thank you for being flexible and rolling with all that, and all of you for having come and shared this space, this strange Zoom space with us. And I really didn't pay Agatha to give that plug for the Noyo River Review, but she did a great job. So I think, is it possible for us to at least give like one big round of virtual applause and thumbs up, and you can add other chat accolades and all that, and we'll just kind of see what happens after this. I don't know. Thank you for coming, everybody. We even heard some clapping. Yay.
We unmute.
Yeah. And everyone.
Yes, you can unmute. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing.
Yay. Thank you. Wonderful.
Writers. Thank you, Mendocino.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And thank you to the audience, especially. This is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'm loving hearing those thank yous and the audience sounds. Yes, we missed that part.
I really appreciate everybody listening. There's such great work. Yeah.
High variety. I loved it. Did I hear a cat?
Child.
But it was the child being strangled. I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, yes.
This was great. This was great. Not quite as good as being there, but it was great.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yes. There is something about being there that we just cannot replace, but again, we're moving forward, and some things that would have been impossible in a physical world are possible in cyberspace. So,
Well, I'll come to Mendocino when it all opens up and do it.
yes. Yes. Are any of you going to attend the conference, the online conference this year? Ah, I see hands. Yay.
Yes.
Yay. Yay.
I didn't realize it was happening online. I just found that out today, so I'm going to.
Okay. See, it's
you know, is there still room for the workshops, to sign up for the workshops?
some of them, yes.
There is still room. We would love to have you. There's room in all of the workshops except for the master class, which is juried, and so that closed in January. But yes, some of them have only a spot or two left, but there are spaces in all of the workshops left.
So fantasy has a spot?
It has one spot.
One
spot.
Okay.
Ooh, I'll see you there.
Well, it's a new genre for me, so this would be a stretch.
Very apply fast.
Yes. And,
Thank you, Marion.
Right. Historical fiction. Again, Susan Stinson. This I can't wait to read it.
Great. I've read it. It's great.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And for anyone registered for the conference or registering for the conference, you should definitely apply for the contest, because that's how a lot of the writers that were selected for the Noyo Review came out of the contest from last year. So that's a great additional way to be involved in all of this. So, yeah.
Thank you for. You put the conference link in the beginning of the chat, didn't you? Very beginning.
Yeah, I just put it in again. It's mcwc.org, and you'll get there. There's conference register now button in the corner. So,
yes. Wow. I know, you just can't escape us. We're just going to come after you and just, force you to come. But yeah, even if you're not thinking you're ready to register for the conference, go to the website and take a look at the really wonderful, all the great instructors, and there's beautiful photographs that will make you, nostalgic for the North Coast. But yeah.
It's the best conference. It's the best conference.
Yes, it is. I agree.
It's small and intimate and fun and informative and encouraging and a great space.
Well, and when you arrive, you're greeted like a member of the family. It's that wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll greet you like family when you come online.
Yeah.
We will do all those things for you because
By August. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that today. Thank you, Susan and Amy, so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and great timing. Oh my God, the timing was perfect. You did it. 2 hours.
I know, we survived and everything. It's great. Thank you. And I love seeing the faces that are kind of flashing by, the little pictures and stuff. So I'm realizing I am gonna stay and kind of read the chat, some of the chat stuff that was going on and kind of, you know, that kind of thing. But I guess this is the official goodbye, but you're welcome to sort of linger and do whatever you want to do for a few, so, you know.
We don't have to help tidy up. We don't have to pick up dirty glasses. So yeah.
That's right. We can't go wander into the shelves at gallery and pick a book and, you know, add it to our pile, but someday it will happen.
You know how you can all save the chat so you can look at the comments later. Everybody at the bottom right.
Yeah, I guess that's all taken care of. Like it's all, you know, it's like I can do that later. I don't have to sit here until midnight, like going scrolling through, do I?
Yeah. Well, the chat will go away if you sign off, though. So you need to sign off.
I have it saved and we'll email it to all the readers so you can read the comments.
Great. And I think, Amy, too, you're going to, the recording will be something that the readers can share with their
yeah, we can format it, right, and get it on a private YouTube, but we'll take care of that. I'm actually going to stop